Are you a warrior or a worrier?
Right.
I was neither.
Are
it's
you
not
a
mine,
warrior or a worrier?
Yeah, you can't be both.
Hey, I'm Greg Grunberg, and welcome to Talk About It, the podcast where we focus on topics that everybody should be talking about, and hopefully they will be, not only talking, but screaming about.
Epilepsy shouldn't keep you from doing anything that you want to do.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
While we will continue our focus on epilepsy, of course, we will also look at other health conditions and causes. Our goal is to knock down, drag out, and eliminate stigma and raise awareness. Each episode, you're going to hear from amazing advocates and champions. You will learn, as I will, about how we can all help to make a real difference.
Talking about it is important. It's all about connecting.
Talk about it.
Talk about it.
Talk about it.
Talk about it. Thank you for talking about it.
Thank you for talking about it.
Talk About It is sponsored by Seizures Are Signs. Seizures Are Signs is dedicated to educating those living with or caring for someone with uncontrolled seizures about the importance of early diagnosis, recognition, and treatment. To learn more, please visit seizuresaresigns.com. Seizures Are Signs is made available by Jazz Pharmaceuticals. All right, so let's jump right into this episode of Talk About It. Hey, welcome to another episode of Talk About It. This is a really cool one because I've been a fan of these guys. They have an incredible podcast called Just Two Dads, but they are so much more than just two dads. They are two dads who are caregivers. They have special needs kids, Sean Francis and Brian Altunian. I've done their show a couple of times, and I said, look, as payment, you got to come back on my show and teach everybody some of the lessons that you've learned over the years. And dads sitting around a table, not enough dads sit around a table and talk, especially caregivers and special needs dads. So please sit back and enjoy this episode of Talk About It with just three dads. This is called Revenge, guys. This is Touche.
Nervous.
Nervous. You guys, I hope you're nervous. 160 episodes plus of your show. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having us
on the show, and thanks for doing what you guys are doing. And not that you need thanks. I don't like to hear it. When people go, you guys are incredible, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Do you feel the same way that I do? Do you get, I know the answer to this, but do you get the same, if not more, out of the podcasts, Just Two Dads, than the guests get or that the listeners get? Therapeutically, educationally?
Yes.
Well, again, we started this because we were having conversations on a regular basis. And so, when we started the podcast, we're like, who's going to listen to us? We're just two dads. But we thought, well, these are people that we'd like to hear from. We want to know, what they're doing. So we never heard about this service or this, what that kind of. So we get a lot of value out of it because it's what we want to know as parents. Yeah. And then, we're thrilled when other people are like,
we're as much
so helpful
viewers as we are like hosts. So it's like wearing two hats at this, like when you're sitting there and when someone's on there.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we always say if there's anyone you want to hear about, any topic you want to have discussed, anyone you think that provides a service to the community that we should know about, let us know. We give our email address. We've had maybe two people do that. There's people that will say maybe you should know this person, that person, but for the most part, what happens is we'll find out about somebody, go, oh my gosh, what they're doing is amazing, and then you ask questions from the parent's perspective because that's who we are.
Well, when you say you're as much an audience member as that is literally true because I've seen the podcast where you're like, Sean, are you going to speak? Because and the vice versa. You're like, Brian, because you're on such a roll or you're on such a roll.
Yeah. Yep.
And I have that with Nick a little bit, but sometimes I'm like, Nick, give me a hand here, buddy. I'm bouncing on a wire.
Sometimes Sean will be talking and I'll just be listening, and I forget that we're actually like doing something. I'm like, I better because I'm just taking it in.
The other thing that I think is awesome about your show is that you don't need celebrity guests. You don't need. You don't need necessarily to have somebody having an event or something, or even a podcast or whatever. Everybody in the special needs community, every caregiver, this is what I'm finding with the caregiver series and everything I'm doing. Everybody has an incredibly interesting story.
For sure.
It's like we did a podcast called Corner Stories, and it was all about like people on the corner, starting a small business. There is a struggle. That's why Shark Tank does so well, right? It's like there is such an American dream or whatever. When you're dealing with a family. Forget special needs. Just
Yeah.
being a dad.
Yeah.
Right? There is such a story. It's so relatable. Everybody has the same obstacles to overcome. Everybody is trying just to love their family, to be the best dad they can be.
Exactly.
Or mom. I mean, your latest
Sure.
episode,
Yeah.
she's not a dad, but
Right.
she was super interesting. A woman that you worked with before that you, and she became a patient now.
Yes.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's like everybody's got a story.
Right.
Let's just, because you're Mr. Superhero and you talk about how everybody has an origin story.
Yeah.
Just tell me the origin story of how you met, how this thing got started.
Yeah. Well, I'll start it, and Sean will
Yeah, you do that.
throw in. So we, I'll tell you, we're in the financial services industry. So we do a lot of things with the insurance investments. We help families.
Okay, I'm falling asleep already.
No,
with this
I know. But
See, you should have let me tell it. No, just
I know,
kidding. Just
right.
kidding. Just kidding.
Anyway,
No, go ahead.
But we, as with my team, we were like, we don't want any community to be left behind. And I was talking to some of the folks on my team about the communities that they were involved in, because if you're in the community and you speak about the boring subject of finance, at least you have some relatability. And my daughter at the time, who was in the business with us, who had an IEP, so she was in special needs, community. She said, "Well, Dad, what's my community?" And I said, "Well, wow, we should talk about the special needs community." And I don't even know if we serve the special needs community. And I had met Sean, and I knew that Sean's son was on the autism spectrum. So I said, "Hey, Sean, have you ever thought about doing what we're doing, but for the special needs community?" And he's like, "Not only have I thought about it, like I'm down the road, I'm trying to build the presentation, and
Wow.
we should do this." And literally, we were like, "Let's do this thing together." Nobody in the very few companies in the financial world address the needs of the special needs community. So as you said, what we need as families and support, special needs community needs it 10 times, because most people in the community aren't thinking like, they're thinking like, is my child going to graduate from school? Are they going to have a job? Are they going to live alone? Are they going to be independent? They're not thinking about what happens when I pass away. What happens to my child? And so we had started the initiative in finance to help the special needs community, and we just kept encountering amazing people who were doing things. We're like, I didn't know about that. And
That's fascinating.
I didn't know about that. And that's really kind of how.
Yeah.
And so we kept talking about it, and then we're like, we should talk about this.
And the one thing you realize is that whatever limitations that we put upon ourselves are so insidious. So to begin with, I had been working in the industry for, I don't know, 5, 6, maybe 7 years, something like that.
Right.
Long enough, right?
Yeah.
And I had this idea, if I'm in a position to serve people in a holistic way where you're looking at all these different things, life insurance, short-term, long-term, retirement, estate planning, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
Neurotypical families need that. Our families need it twice as much. And to be honest, I kept thinking, if I approach one person about this, because you don't know if you don't have conversations. And if one person questions my intention, especially from our community, I just couldn't live with that. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah.
And then I got to thinking, wait a minute. People will disagree about, religion and, have various, thought processes, right? But everybody will agree, atheist or otherwise, Jesus' existence was about helping other people, right? Whether you think he's a prophet, divine creation, whatever the case might be.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody agrees on that. And his intentions are questioned to the point of death, right? And I'm a spiritual person more than I am religious. So, this isn't about preaching. But if he was questioned to the point of death and I'm a mere mortal, who am I to think that if I decide to do anything remotely good for the world, that I'm not going to be questioned?
Right.
So the only way to be questioned
Yeah.
is to just sit on the couch.
Right.
And so I had to get out of my own way. And when I did that, Brian and I met. And that's when I was like, you know what? I needed the nudge. So I think that there's something greater than both of us that brought us together at that given time.
Sean, get off the couch. Come on, let's go. Let's go do it.
Yeah, and you threatened him with "Don't steal my idea," and then he was like, "Let's do this together."
There was none of that. But I have to say,
I know.
The consciousness though
Yeah.
that we have, right, or that we should seek is just so valuable. Do you know that? And I think I might have told you this before. You're responsible for me even using the word caregiver in my posts, in my language, and everything. Because
I am.
Yeah, because the show, the caregiver series,
Yeah.
I knew of it.
Yeah.
Again, you figure I know of the show. I'm like, oh, that's what we are. We're all caregivers.
Yeah.
But it didn't work like that. I knew of it for a while, and then after a while, I'm telling people, Yeah, it's called Just Two Dads, and it's related to special needs. But the truth of the matter is, I always tell people, if you're blessed with a long life, you're going to be a member of the special needs community.
100%. You're either going to be a caregiver or need a caregiver.
Exactly.
It's interesting you say that, planning for the future, right? I mean, this is what you guys do. That's not what we're here for. It's to talk about that. But, insurance, long-term care, any of that stuff, no one wants to think about. I mean, from the time we're teenagers, we're like, we're bulletproof. I don't have to worry, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But you then start thinking about it. Well, I'm not going to be around forever, and I want to make sure my kids are taken care of and the family's taken care of. Add being a caregiver to a special needs, like I have. Well, but it becomes a necessity. It becomes like, oh, no, this is not a stigma to talk about it or not think about it. Now we have to.
We have to.
Exactly.
So that's really interesting because, we got all of that stuff in order. A lot of people, though, there's so much for us to think about, so much for us to worry about.
Yeah.
That's something that is, I think, a lot of times left on the back burner for people.
100%.
But then what a relief when you go, even even if you don't have a lot of money or any money or whatever, just to know that you have a paperwork that says, okay, this is what, if I'm not around, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because you're so being relied upon by the ones you love and the ones you're caring for.
For sure. And, I always say that, the banks and the government are the two institutions that are supposed to take care of the American public, the American family.
Yeah.
And really, and by the way, our community is reliant on both of those institutions, like, money and then government support, and government support with the state or federal. And so the reality is they don't help the average American family. Those two institutions are really there for the wealthy, the one percenters. That's really who they serve. And so the average American family doesn't have access to it. The special needs community, for sure, they're like, I don't know what's available to me. I don't know how to navigate the waters. I don't. And by the I got to take care of my child. Who's having a meltdown at the moment. Like they can't even start to begin to think about that kind of stuff. So we get that the value that we bring in the financial world is valuable to the community, but more importantly, what we're doing on the podcast, and we get to talk to amazing people like you who also.
Well, I'm in the very rare era though. Most of the people are schlubs that you talk to. I mean, let's start.
Listen, the reality is
every single one of your episodes, I cannot stop listening to. I'm serious. Like
that means so much.
No, it really. But that's not because of you guys. You're very good at what you do, but it's so important that we create a community.
Yeah, that's why that means so much, because our whole thing we tell people is, we're the host of the show, but it's really for the audience and the guests, because the intent is to shine a light on them. And what we really find out is that, the onion of life and the human mind, you can't ever cease pulling it, back the layers, because what the show has taught us is, anything that's important to the general population is 10 times more important to ours. And we have so much more in common than we do otherwise. And what we tend to do is forget the root of what's most important when it comes to human existence. So if you think about money, like we did a series, I came up with this term where it came to me. There's more to money than money. And what that essentially means is that, from a material standpoint, the house, the car, the clothes, the trinkets, whatever, those things, we don't even realize that as much as we think we want those, we don't even really want them. What we want is the feeling that they give us. So by the same token, nobody wants to talk about when you die, how's your kid gonna, get along when you exist only in memory. So don't necessarily think about the financial product or the vehicle, but what is it going to do? So if you then think of life itself, as opposed to what do I want to do? What do I want to get? Who do I have to be? Yeah. And that makes it a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Coming up on Talk About It.
We're like, can you just stop and tell us what does that all mean? And she's like, well, she'll never live alone. She'll never graduate school. She'll never drive. Never have a job. She'll lead assisted living her whole life. And sentenced. We were like sentenced.
Right. So look at that. Two guys in the financial world. They are really brilliant at planning other people's lives, setting their future so that it's not as unpredictable, right, financially. But as caregivers and as dads of special needs kids, the future is very unpredictable. So all you want to do is control both your finances and your family and keep everybody safe. And I think when people are thrown into these situations, they look at what their life skills are and how they can apply them to the challenges that they are facing and that they're presented. So these two are a great example of just using their wisdom and using what they know to help others. And you can do the same. What, and each individually answer this, what is a moment during this podcast 160 plus episodes. That's a lot of guests, a lot of stories, a lot to learn. What sticks out to you as something that you were like, wow, we did this episode and man, I really learned. Like what's the most memorable thing?
Well, first of all, I don't know if it's just because of my age or what, but I cry at the drop of a hat about things, right? And so we've had a couple of episodes that have been so meaningful. One that the direction of the conversation went completely different than where we thought it was going to go. What was this?
Who was the guest?
The guest was a gal who was in the military and special needs mom, and the conversation was about the service that she provided, but it turned into all of the sort of the sexual abuse that occurs in the military.
Oh,
and it was one of those moments where we were like, holy cow.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, I would not have seen that.
No,
obviously.
She told us she didn't see it coming.
She said, I don't even know why I'm sharing this with you
She
guys.
said, I've never told anybody about this before.
Yeah, it was wild. And by the way, that was one which was really a wow, and I'll just tell one more, and I don't think I'll get through it. So
go ahead.
Now you share yours, and then if we have time.
You go ahead.
So we had this mom who wrote a book, by the way, and she was talking about her son who didn't speak, and on Katie Asher.
Katie Asher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Holy cow! So she wrote a book.
Hey,
I will get through it because
don't get through it.
It was so amazing when as a caregiver, she was so exhausted and so run down, and she was lying on the couch, and her son came and held her hand and said, "I love you." First words he ever spoke.
No.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, that was God.
Wow.
It was so powerful.
And he came downstairs and he sat at my feet, which he absolutely had never done. And he was perfectly still, which he never was. He wasn't flapping his hands. He wasn't rocking back and forth. He wasn't making any noises. He was completely still. And he reached over and with great intention pulled on the blanket just like you would to wake someone up. And I opened my eyes and he was looking directly into my eyes, which he never could do. Amazing. And he said, "Mama, I love you." And that was the first time I'd ever heard him say my name.
And she wrote a book about it and some of the journey that she was on. And I'm telling you, Greg,
Nick, that's incredible.
It was.
And we just kind of stopped.
Yeah, she was like, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore."
And by the way, that's validity on the fact that she's done an absolutely incredible job.
Yeah, 100%.
Whoever's channeling that kid to say that at that moment, that's exactly what she needed.
Yeah.
But she did that.
She
did that in her caregiving.
For sure. It was during a Thanksgiving holiday, so the kids were around, and her other children looked and said, Did he just talk?
Mm-hmm.
It was so powerful.
Yeah, that's
and meaningful.
incredible.
It was deep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
All right, try and match that, buddy.
Good luck.
Good luck to you.
I like them all. Just,
160 or whatever.
We were saying before we started recording,
plus one.
what's your favorite kid? We all have more than one child, and you're like, I like them all.
Once upon a time, this must be a thing about getting older too. Much like Brian, like I cry really easily, right? And at the same time,
dude, you look 12.
Yeah,
Don't talk to me about
it
getting
makes me
older.
mad.
No,
seriously,
no.
I'm going to shave my head.
No.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if that's
You need
the
a tan.
key or
You
what.
need a tan.
You're moisturizing like crazy.
It's the
Dude,
truth.
you're the best looking dude I know.
Yeah.
What is going on with Sean?
that means a lot to me,
Well,
man. Because I
seriously.
stop and think about it. And again, this goes back to the Onion, how we see ourselves, and people tell you things, and you go like, "Really? It's me?"
No, it's true.
Because I'm gonna be 60 in September.
You don't wear the stress. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
That's
it's gonna be-
crazy.
Yeah. And I don't. I mean,
Can you mess up the lighting a little bit on him to
Yes,
just age him
seriously.
up a little bit?
No,
now?
this is gonna
in post.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's my favorite line.
This is gonna sound weird, but I was thinking of that now. To me, I see like the changes, and that's another thing. Getting older is like a superpower. I think because I used to hear us saying, youth is wasted on the young, and I was like, what does that even mean?
Right.
Well, what it means is if you have the wisdom at an older age when you were younger, oh my gosh, so much time you would not waste.
Yeah,
Sure.
And so I see lessons in almost everything. So if I see, I'm not being facetious, I'm telling you about what I see. If I say a wrinkle or a bag or something that just doesn't look like it did a month ago or whatever, I take a metaphor from that and it's like, what does that mean? I think about how much of my life I've wasted because I've been really blessed. I've lived my life as though I have some kind of hookup and I'm on the guest list, and I'm not only going to heaven, but for some reason, I get to decide when. Now, I know that's not true.
Wow.
But I've lived my life that way. I've wasted so much time, right?
Yeah.
Because, I talk about, Brian actually sent me, we were texting this morning, like, what are you going to wear? I want to make sure that, and this goes back to what I'm saying, your insecurities. I'm like, do I look okay? Whatever. So in terms of the show, I can't think of a specific episode that stands out more so than the other. But I've had more than one instance where I learned so much. This sounds weird. Learned so much about my son.
Mm-hmm.
When we're doing the episode, he's at school and we're sitting there, and something comes up, and I will relate to him. And in Katie's episode, when that took place, I lost it as well. And I think that probably stands out more so than any other. Now, as soon as we wrap, I'll go, oh, well, what? So-and-so.
Of course.
It'll come to mind.
Well, it's hard because you've done so many. All right. So talk to me about when you became a special needs dad.
You mean the moment of
realization, diagnosis without, but what did that mean to you? Somebody's watching this right now and they've just gone through that.
Yeah.
Well,
first of all, my mom had said, I think you should have Jordan's hearing checked because she's not babbling. She was like 18 months old. I'm like,
oh yeah.
Ugh. And she kept kind of giving it, and I thought, just mind your own business. And so then to appease her, we took her to the House Ear Institute, which is here in Los Angeles, and they're like, well, her hearing's fine, but if you're concerned, maybe you should go see a neurologist. And I was like, all right, I'll appease my mother. And so then my mother-in-law came with us, and the doctor, neurologist, well-known and well-regarded, spent about, after waiting an hour in the waiting room, spent about 3 minutes with Jordan, holding her hand, having her stand on one foot. She then went around to the back of the desk and just started typing away. Jordan, exhibits, microcephaly and blah, 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 blah. And I was in a Peanuts cartoon for a minute because I didn't understand. I didn't hear a word.
Course. Yeah, you're just Charlie Brown's teachers talking.
100% for 45 minutes.
It's like that's what I hear when Nick talks.
Yeah, no, I get it. I hear it's like what I hear when Sean speaks.
You told me you hear Vince Guaraldi.
Now that's worth hearing.
Yeah,
that is worth hearing.
Yeah, so it was like I got kicked in the gut.
Yeah,
I remember thinking like. And then, first of all, I was like, and then I was like, who's to blame? Like, who, why, how did that happen?
Isn't that amazing that that's what we all do? We're like, what did I do wrong? What happened? Right. You especially Elizabeth was like, wait a minute, did I eat something wrong? She doesn't smoke, she doesn't drink, whatever. But she's like, what happened?
We had the same thing.
Yeah, in pregnancy, whatever. The other side of it is people that hear, oh, there's a tumor, or here's a spot, or there's a scar, or whatever. And as bad as that is, you also would love to be able to point a finger at it.
For sure.
That's why.
That's what
it's
it is. Yeah.
My wife at the time, when she was pregnant, had a pregnancy rash and couldn't put anything on it. And it's contained to a pretty small area, like from upper thigh to belly. And so we thought, well, maybe there was something in that, or maybe in the treatment of that. And when she was going through inducement, the baby's heart rate crashed. We thought maybe that. And so we kept looking for those things.
Yeah, anything.
Anything.
Right. So
well, and then our I'll just say really quickly, our neurologist told us all of the things that Jordan wasn't going to do in that meeting. She wasn't going to, I'm like, what is it? We're like, can you just stop and tell us what does that all mean? And she's like, well, she'll never live alone. She'll never graduate school. She'll never drive, never have a job. She'll need assisted living her whole life. And sentenced. We were like sentenced.
Right. 18 months.
18 months old. Mm-hmm. And we're like, what the hell? And then
did you look at it as a challenge and say, no, you know what?
Well, initially
at that time, it's like when you get that diagnosis.
No, for sure.
What? And they're so good. A lot of them are so good at what they do that this is it. And they're dealing with 200 cases like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not a big deal to them.
To them.
Right.
Yeah, and to you, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like this just altered the rest of my life and my child's life.
Exactly.
Right. Well, not to mention the fact that then I had to acknowledge that my mom was right, which I never want to do as a Jewish child. Never Jewish son to tell my mom that she was right.
It's so funny. You know what's interesting also is, and I've talked to this, a lot of people say the first thing is either you need to go to a speech therapist or a hearing.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, it's a speech thing. Which I guess is good.
On the surface, it seems like that.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to hear your when you heard the diagnosis.
Well, for me, my wife is just brilliant and smart and everything, and I married up. In addition to the fact that she had daughters from her previous marriage, so she had an experience. So I had little cousins and things like that. I haven't seen development at a close point. So I thought his farts were in tune. I didn't think anything was wrong at all.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But she was like, there's certain things that he's not doing that he should. And I'm like, okay.
She's been through it before.
Yeah. And she had girls, and girls mature faster than boys as well.
Right.
This is just my deduction.
Of
Maybe
course.
that's why she saw those things. So we go to the doctor, and the pediatrician says, well, some of the things that he's exhibiting are symptoms of autism. I'm like, oh. But then some of those things that are symptoms of autism are behaviors of a normal, healthy child. Okay, can you just say that again?
Right.
Like, what are you saying then? So what do we do?
Right.
Well, you get him into early intervention. Like, okay. And then they told us at that time that they didn't diagnose autism prior to the age of 3. Now, my wife also remembers the distinct difference in his behavior after his immunization. Again, me, I didn't see any of that.
Oh,
right?
Interesting.
So there's that. And then we were renting a house at the time. There was some mold in, I think the bathroom or something like that. So she started to wonder about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I present as a fairly intelligent person, but when people look at my academic history, they would be like, my parents were in the 70s. What is wrong? Like, why doesn't it? So I have always struggled in a formal setting, especially if I'm not seeking the education.
Right.
So I started thinking, but I've never been diagnosed with anything, but I think I've slipped through the cracks. So my other thing was like, I had to pass something on. Who knows? So we go through this process, and they're supposed to let us know when he's diagnosed and what they think it is. And I'll never forget. I started in financial services and was struggling in it too. And my wife is working 9 to 5. So she's at work, and I'm calling the doctor's office, and the girl answers the phone. Jess, how may I help you? I'm like, yes, I'm calling regarding my son, Elijah Francis. And it sounded just that desperate because this was like the day they're supposed to know. And she goes, what's his name again? I repeated it. His date of birth? She goes, okay, just a second. She goes, yeah, he has it. He has autism.
Over the phone.
Yeah, like.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, like was that pepperoni or anchovies?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I'm like,
It's insane.
and I was like, I'm not sure what to ask. I'm not sure what to feel. I don't like, and I'm just like, all right. And you talk about, do you decide, we'll skip that. We're going to just, do you go into warrior mode? Are you a warrior or a worrier?
Right.
I was neither.
That's amazing. Let's just stop right there. That's a T-shirt. We're stealing that from you.
Well,
are
it's
you
not mine,
a
so-
warrior or a worrier?
Yeah, you
What
can't
a
be
gr-
both.
What a great line.
Yeah. And I'd like to take credit for it, but it's not
Why can't
mine.
you be both?
Well, you know what? You can't effectively be both. I guess you have to manage it. You know
But
what
at
I mean?
that moment-
it takes one to be the other.
You're
Yes.
one or the
And
other.
also, by the way, there might be one and the other in parenting.
For sure.
And that splits up a lot of couples.
Yep.
You know, it's like, I don't want to deal with this.
And that's what I learned too, because at that point, I was actually neither.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm not sure what to do here. So when she came home, I told her, and she's the detective. I'm like, I will execute, right? So she would like research things, find stuff out, and I'm the one that'll go in front and implement it, especially because she's working 9 to 5. My schedule is more flexible.
Right.
So she comes home, and I don't remember telling her. I don't remember exactly what we did. I know we had a speech therapist, and that was the first person that saw him, and that did not work because he was not feeling her at all. And so we started paying attention to him, but I started seeing why, if a marriage is not fortified with the right things to begin with, how a diagnosis breaks it apart.
Now, there's also, like we didn't have no family history, right?
None.
No family history. No family history
No.
for us. So I didn't have anybody to call. I didn't have like an Uncle Lou to go, hey, how did you handle this?
Yeah, exactly.
So where do you find your community? How do you find it? And did you talk about it with people right away? I mean, was it something that was like a little like let's not tell people what this is. Let's not, because people pick up signs or they'll act in certain ways instead of talking to you about it.
It's funny because I think I just acted instinctively. I didn't advertise it, but it wasn't a secret. And now that I think back about it, one of the best things I did is because of that flexible schedule. So he had therapy Monday through Saturday. And so I would take him to a facility for therapy, which was the Childhood Development Institute in Woodland Hills.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I would take him there, and then he would have a session at home in the evening as well. Right? And then I also joined a mommy and me group, and I was the only dad in there.
Yeah.
And interacting with other parents, I found right away it came easily talking about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't necessarily tell everyone. And he was so small that we didn't get the stares and things like that yet. Like when I would take him to the park, the only thing that would happen is when we go to the park, when it was time to leave the park,
Mm-hmm.
people would think that, you know, I was a felon because he would be screaming, crying, and not
course.
want to leave the park.
Of course.
And then you also have the other thing that you deal with, which is, well, this is an autism thing people won't understand. Kids scream when they leave the park because they don't want to leave. And what you do is you complicate things because you're like,
100%.
this is a special needs thing. You wouldn't understand.
Oh, and you just get so paranoid.
Yeah.
And that's the internal, dialogue.
Yeah.
Were you as proactive? Because we were proactive too.
We were very proactive. Jordan's mom was she was militant. And by the way, this is 27 years ago. So we didn't have a lot of the resources available. So in fact, I think we were getting online via Prodigy, if you remember those days. Prodigy, right?
Exactly.
And
Nick, don't nod like you know what we're talking about.
It's like, is that a group?
Something.
Yeah.
And my God,
a band.
Nick's like, oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
What's he talking about?
Right.
Liar.
Dial phones, rotary
Exactly.
phones.
Z channel. Yeah.
First HBO.
Right.
But we found an online resource that for microcephaly, which means nothing, by the way. It just literally means small head, which means for folks who have developmental delays, it's it's an indication. And so once we did that, we found a great resource of people who were giving us suggestions. And so that is why we went to a regional center, because of that community.
Well, the regional center thing is a big, big deal.
Yeah.
Huge.
That's something that I think people fight initially. They're like, I don't know. Like, so we went to a group, right? You're sitting in a group, and you're not going to see a mirror image of what you're going through. That's the other thing that people, and dads especially.
And you look for it, but it's not there.
It's not there, and you
Yeah.
can't expect it to be there. I've talked about this, ad nauseum on the show, but like I'll talk to somebody. This is an example, right? Jake had brain surgery, and we're sitting in the room, and this guy walks in, and he's ex-military, he was ex-military. And he walks in the room, he's like, "Hey, Jake, what's going on, man? How are you?" The most fit dude I've ever seen, totally. And he had you could see a big scar, from years ago.
Sure.
Yeah.
And and a dent in his head. And he says, "I just want to talk to you and talk to you guys about what's going on." And we're sitting there, and he says, "Half my brain's gone." So they took half of his brain away.
Wow.
Because he stepped on an IED or something happened, whatever, he
Sure.
was close to something. And I'm sure he has his issues and things he has to deal with. But I was like, that's the guy I want to be. As soon as he walked in the room, I'm like, how do I lose weight like that? How do I? And I learned something from him. So that's what happens when I listen to Just Two Dads or Talk About It or the Caregiver Series. I'm gleaning something. You don't have to hear the exact story that
And
you're
the
going
perspective,
through.
you need to seek it. Like, for instance, my son's school starts at 8:30. That's not when we generally arrive. Okay.
Oh man,
It starts then.
Here's the thing.
It's up for him.
This is the shorthand.
Yeah.
When you're talking to other special needs
Yeah.
dads, man, that is so
But
funny.
and here's the thing: it's such to be conscious of other people, to be like we say, childlike and less childish, and be curious about other people. That takes work.
Yeah.
Because the human condition consists of, I'm concerned about my shoes and how they fit. Everybody else's matters, but not right now. So what happens is, we get to school a little late, every day. And sometimes, and he has to go through his entire routine before we go out the door. And then when we get there, it doesn't matter how late we are, he has to go through a routine of telling me exactly what we're going to do after school. And that has to take place.
And what happens if you break that? If you're like, we don't have time for this today, let's go.
He gets upset.
Yeah.
He gets upset. And so I'm thinking of that, and I was going to make a post about it the other day because I don't post on social media at set times. Something hits a spirit, and I just post it. And one of the things I was going to post is the idea that we like to celebrate our differences and the things that make us unique and stand out. But as a caregiver or parent to one with special needs, you're like, sometimes I really just want to blend in,
Yeah.
Coming up on Talk About It.
So I turned
Come on, man.
and I tell her, I said, I just wanted to tell you throughout the movie, it's okay. And we embraced, and I met her kids, and her husband.
Right?
This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We need to
Talk about it.
talk about it.
100%.
Exactly.
Oh my God. By now, you know I love caregivers. I am a caregiver. I appreciate them. I think caregivers are heroes. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to take the praise. They don't want the pat on the back. It's like most people will say, what am I supposed to do? I love this person. This is why I'm caring for them. But caregivers deserve a nod. You deserve your recognition. You're doing a great job. Don't take it from me. Take it from some of my celebrity friends.
I just want to say thank you to all the caregivers in the world.
To all the caregivers.
To the caregivers out there, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
You're doing incredible work.
Thank you for what you do.
Don't forget to be kind to yourself so you can be kind to others.
From the bottom of my heart.
It's so important, and you're appreciated.
My love.
We'll wrap this up with advice. Oh, you guys got to come back. I'm sorry.
We'll be back.
This is
sure.
Den
This is
2.0.
fantastic.
How about that?
For sure.
Yes.
Because this is just therapeutic for me. Nick is like, I'm never having kids.
Yeah.
You know, I got to make a comment here. It's funny you say that. I ended up asking, I don't know
I'm sorry, you have to make a comment about? No, it's okay. Good.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No, you know what?
No, you keep
make a
going. No,
comment.
no,
You make a
keep going.
comment.
Keep
No,
going.
no,
finish
after
your thought.
you. But no, I was having a conversation with one of our kids the other day. I don't remember how it came up, but somewhere we were talking about having kids, and their response was, I don't think we're going to have any kids. I'm like, if you're sure of that,
Yeah.
that's the best reason not to.
Totally.
You know, but just out of curiosity, how come? Well, when you have a child, you have no idea what kind of health problems they're going to have. Now, keep in mind, they're dating someone who has a sibling that has special needs. And at the same time, they've seen their now cousin / brother by way of adoption deal with special needs. And it's just like, it just seems like a lot. And I was just like, I never thought about that. I appreciate that honesty, but here I am thinking that, no, what you're going to do is, knit a cape, throw it on, and have a child regardless, because this is the lesson you got from it.
Yeah.
And not everything is received that way.
No, I know. It's really true. It's really true. And by the way, everybody's got something.
Yeah.
Everybody, and you embrace that unique quality about yourself. Nick has zero personality.
Sure, I get it.
I mean, no sense of humor at all.
Yeah,
and he embraces that.
Yeah.
And
It's a nice yin to your yang.
Be true to you.
It is.
Yes.
Okay. Just
Wrapping it up.
not wrapping it up, but I just wanted to hear, somebody doesn't get it. You're in a situation where they stare, they don't understand. We've been in where Jake's had absence seizures. This is when he's a long time ago again, but where we'd be in a group. It was like after a soccer game or something, and we're standing there, and there was just this dad who was like funny. He wasn't a jerk or anything, but just like standing there. And Jake was like, just had a little like staring spell, whatever, and came back. And this dad was like, "Hey, buddy, hey, wake up, pal! Come on, buddy, what are you doing?" I mean, I know. Look at your face now. Blood boils.
You can find out what size shoe I wear the easy way, and I can tell you.
Exactly.
Or you can find out the hard way.
Right.
Yeah.
So somebody's listening to this. Somebody's watching this. What advice do you give at that moment?
In that particular situation, I am not sure what I would do. But I will tell you this: I did have somebody in our office who has a very aggressive personality in general. I remember him giving my daughter some grief about something, and it was sort of his way. It's how he sort of relates to everybody. So I didn't really take it at heart until she made a comment to me that it bothered her. So usually I will, because they're going to experience that whether I'm there or not, right? My child's going to have that. People are going to say things, or she's not going to. So I'm not going to be there all the time. So I didn't say anything until she said something to me, and I pulled him aside and I said, just so you know, empathy is a quality that we all should embrace. You have no idea what the situation is. You're making fun, and I realize that that's how you relate, but you have no idea what she's going through. By the way, she has a learning disability. So the fact that she has to take an exam 15 times to pass it, that's how she gets through things. But just want you to understand that it's not what you think it is, and if she's not reacting to you, it's a response. So have some empathy. That's what we talk about, empathy all the time.
And what was the response?
He was like, I had no idea.
I love
and
it.
And he's like, and by the way, until you told me, I didn't know. Like there's nothing evident. Like it's not. So I didn't know, and I'm actually glad that you told me.
It's ignorance, but not ignorance in the this is just ignorant about this.
Yeah.
They just don't
know.
They're
They
just
don't
not
know.
educated enough.
Yeah.
So what is your first reaction? And I know it's different every time.
The first thing I'll say is, if you have a temptation and a deep desire to hit someone so hard that when they wake up, their clothes are back in style, embrace the notion.
I'm called Sean the Philosopher, by the way. That's his nickname, the Philosopher.
It's okay to think that, but doing so is not, and it's a last resort, because I've had that temptation. And so you want to stop and really think about it and remember, again, questions are more powerful than statements.
Yeah.
People don't understand.
Yeah. Sometimes
nobody goes out the door saying, empathy. I got no empathy. I'm not giving any today. People just aren't aware. They're aware of their own situation.
Not aware.
Yeah.
So if you can go about your business and if it's not going to eat at you afterwards, do that and ignore them.
Yeah.
But if you have the urge to say something, which I have, the most I've done is like for instance, my son has this habit. When we go to a public restroom, first of all, he'll take the brand of the toilet and how many gallons per flush.
Dude, come on, that's the greatest.
Right.
So
it is. It's the greatest. I'm sorry.
So he likes that.
I never thought about it before.
I know,
knowing
but
that
how
he does
great
it.
is that?
I know. Like, how many gallons does this flush?
So he'll want to go to the bathroom to use it, and then biologically, I don't know how he does this, but he will go someplace. He'll use the bathroom. We'll go to the next stop, and I'm like, you just use it. I'm like, where is that coming from? How are you? So he does that, but then when he uses the restroom, he has to flush every toilet in the place. Right? Urinal and everything.
Wow.
And it's evolved, because once upon a time, he would have to flush everyone, meaning if someone was using it, he wanted to wait till they were done. Wow. Now he doesn't do that, right? And so we don't wait at the bathroom, but they'll still stare. So we were in Target like 2 weeks ago, and there's a guy that came in there with his sons, and he uses the bathroom. And this is the other thing too. On Friday and on the weekends, he looks like he's employed by the Men in Black because he wears a black suit, right? And he asked for it, so he likes that.
Yeah.
So he's got this black suit on. He's now 17 and has facial hair. And so he's flushing every toilet. And this guy walks in with his kids, and the guy's just like watching him do everything. And I look, and I just said, if you have a question, ask. It's kind of rude to stare. Whatever you do, just don't just stare. At least say something. Spit, boo, hello. Just say something. And the guy was like, and that was all he said, and that was fine.
Yeah.
And so we've had one other instance where my wife is usually the voice of reason, and I'm like a stupid Neanderthal that has less patience. We go to the movies every weekend.
Yeah.
We went one weekend, and he wasn't even really stimming or doing anything. He may walk kind of fast or whatever, and I understand people are kind of like, why is that kid dressed up in a suit, and what is he doing? So this guy was with his family, and he kept staring like the whole time. And I had to really watch myself, because what my wife did is validated my feelings by going, what is he looking at? And I was like, oh, you mean it's okay to do that? All right, it's on now. Yeah, I really do want to know what he's looking at.
Right.
And we had to kind of,
she gave you permission.
Yeah, she did. I was like.
But it's funny you say that, though, because in a way, I think some people who do that think that maybe there's something, and they're trying to look for justification or proof that maybe that child has autism, so I'm going to watch and see if they're exhibiting some signs of autism.
Right.
Sometimes I see that people stare because they're just looking for an answer. And
you don't know why they're staring.
You don't know why.
So I have to tell this one. So as I mentioned, we go to the movies each
we're like
week.
55 minutes over time. Go ahead, tell them that story.
All right.
Sorry.
No.
No,
we go to the movies. We go to the movies every week, right?
Yeah.
So
I'll get this down to 10 minutes.
No, I got to tell you, this is one of our best episodes.
Fix it in post.
What's your address? I live at the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, but we go every week, and it becomes a challenge because of the routines that he has to do, getting out of the bed, getting dressed and everything. So we find ourselves racing to get to the movies. So we get to the theater, the movie's already started, and we go and we sit down. And as we sit down, I'm here, he's here, my wife is to his right. And I noticed out of my peripheral view, and I never looked to the left, but I found myself going, how can I tell? I could tell that the kid next to me had headphones on, even though I was looking straight ahead. So I noticed the headphones. Okay, cool enough. And after the headphones, then I noticed him moving out of the corner of my eye. And I'm like, he's on the spectrum. And that was the first thing I thought. The second thing is like, I want to tell his parents that it's okay so bad. Because he started like, throughout the movie.
Did you see them getting uncomfortable, like embarrassed?
I could see and I could feel them getting uncomfortable. And the movie had already started at this point, so I wanted to tell them so bad. Because we've gotten the whole...
Yeah, right.
All of that. And I want to tell them so bad.
You just want to let them know, hey, don't worry.
It's all cool.
So when the credits roll, his whole thing is like, we're going to stay for the ending credits. He likes to see the ending credits.
Yeah, sure.
So we stay for the ending credits and the lights come on as we're sitting there. I'm like, then I start feeling like I'm bursting at the seams. I'm like, I got to say something. So I turn and I said, hi. And the lady's like, hi. You can see the look on her face and she's about to say sorry. Before she can get it out, I just said, I didn't ask. I was going to tell you, I'm sure he's on the autism spectrum. And at this point, Elijah's rocking as well. And she looks and her eyes just get like the size of saucers.
Come on, man.
And I tell her, I said, I just wanted to tell you throughout the movie. I felt so bad. I wanted to tell you that it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And she was just like, and we embraced, and I met her kids, and her husband.
Right? This is what I'm talking about. Yeah. We need to
talk about it.
100%.
Exactly.
Oh my God, what a great way to end this episode is to just talk about it, man. There are people around, and with the conditions that we're dealing with, you know, in our families, there are millions of people that are dealing with this stuff.
For sure.
And they should not stay silent.
No.
And they should know that there's love right next to them in the movie theater.
Yeah.
Right there.
For sure.
Whether it's understood or it needs to be educated or whatever, there's compassion and love all over the place.
Yep.
I love you guys.
Yeah, love you too, man. Thanks for the work that you're doing. This is fantastic.
I really like you, Nick.
Jury's still out.
Well, that's a wrap on another episode of Talk About It. Remember, we're all human. We're all dealing with something, and a little compassion every day can change so many lives. Thank you to our special guests. Special thanks to our sponsor, SeizuresAreSigns.com. Thank you to J.J. Abrams for our theme music. Thank you to Nick Marzak for producing, directing, editing, and incidental music. On behalf of my fellow producers, Phil Gattone, Ken Lohenberg, and Nick Marzak, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And if you're not watching, go to talkaboutitonvideo.com to watch these episodes. They're now on video as well. I'm Greg Grunberg. Don't forget to talk about it, and I will see you next time. This podcast is a production of the Talk About It Company.